Before I share the scripture for the morning, I just want to say how pleased it's been, how happy day I've had it. 6 of the last 8 Sundays to be with you. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I know you're excited about your new pastor coming this week and to be here his first Sunday next Sunday. And I know you'll give him such a warm welcome and have a wonderful ministry together. And that's pretty. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Scripture reading comes from Mark, the 15th chapter, beginning with the verse am I going to start with? 16. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry Jesus' cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, father of Alexander and Rufus. Oh, I need to go back to 16 on it. Excuse me. Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort. They clothed him with a purple cloak, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on him. And they began saluting him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage of him. And after mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put on his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. And they compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. And then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. They, that is, the Roman soldiers, compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. And I call Simon of Cyrene an example of a sidewalk Christian. He was just passing by. He didn't come down there he wasn't in town to see a crucifixion. He didn't know what was going. He didn't know this was going to happen. He was just passing by. And yet he's been remembered for over 2,000 years because he carried Jesus' cross. New Testament is full of what I call sidewalk Christians. Ordinary, often unnamed folks who made a difference once they come in contact with Jesus. You know some of the stories, probably all of them. One day a boy brought 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread when 5,000 people needed to be fed. We don't know his name, but he offered what he had. And what a story he must have had to tell about Jesus and what Jesus did with those loaves and those fish. And recall an unnamed demon-possessed man who lived among the tombs. After being cured by Jesus, he begged to join him on his journey. Quote, "But Jesus sent him away, saying, 'Return to your home and declare how much God's done for you.'" Just imagine the witness he made for Jesus. And one day some friends lowered a paralyzed man through the roof of a Palestinian home in order that Jesus might heal him. We don't know his name. But just think of the witness and blessing he was to other people. And the list goes on and on. Sidewalk Christians, people yesterday and today, have been blessed and in a turn have become a blessing to others. What can we say about it? Well, using Simon of Cyrene as an example, I want to share with you what I think to be at least 3 characteristics of what I call those sidewalk Christians. So let's consider if there aren't some sitting in the pew here today. First, a sidewalk Christian is there for Jesus when it matters. Simon, a Jew, had come from northern Africa. to be in Jerusalem at the time of the Passover. He heard a ruckus. He saw a procession heading toward Golgotha, the place of the skull where crucifixions took place. And a Roman soldier would have been leading the procession. He would have been carrying a placard that told the crime of the doomed prisoner. And then Simon would have seen that condemned man carrying the crossbeam of a cross while crowds jeered at him. He didn't know who he was. Just some criminal going to be crucified. Jesus, weakened by a night of no sleep and suffering from the flogging, may have stumbled, and a soldier tapped Simon on the shoulder, singling him out to carry the cross. By Roman law, Simon had to do what this Roman soldier told him to do, and he did it. And just a sidewalk observer on that route is part of God's providential plan. And though Simon hadn't planned it, he was there for Jesus when it mattered. In my experience as a pastor, I've found many who fit this pattern of discipleship. They're there for Jesus when that sudden moment comes. Yes, there are many tried and true servants that always answer the call to serve. Thank God for these people. But then we have the others, the people on the sidelines, the people who are just curiously wondering, what's it all about? And then that moment of opportunity and challenge comes. Hey, you standing there, come over here and give a hand. Help feed the hungry. Help visit the sick. Help carry the cross. Who, me? Yes, you. You're the one. Simon of Cyrene, who had never heard Jesus preach, he never saw him heal the sick. He carried his cross. He was there at the time and the place where it mattered. And he responded. Sidewalk Christians, young and old, male and female, also stand in the gap when needed. They rise up to the spiritual occasion and they say yes to Jesus when it really matters. In second place, sidewalk Christians are not soon forgotten. Do you remember what Jesus said to that woman who anointed his feet with precious ointment? Gospel of Mark, quote, "Wherever the gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." She will not be forgotten. And she's not, is it? We have her a couple of thousand years later. We don't know her name. We know the story. She won't be forgotten. In similar fashion, wherever the gospel is proclaimed, Simon of Cyrene is remembered that he only merits one verse in the entire Bible. He hadn't been swept away by the tide of history. He's remembered in two ways. First, as we would all know probably, he carried the cross of Jesus. But secondly, Mark writes that Simon is remembered as the father of Alexander and Rufus. Did you notice that? Did you listen to that? He's mentioned in Mark's gospel, that was written 60 years, at least 30 years later, after Jesus' death, and by that time, Rufus was known in the New Testament church. I can say that because when Paul closed his letter to the Roman church, prior to gospel being written, I remind you, he shared personal greetings with Christians there when he wrote to Rome, and he said, quote, "Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and greet his mother, a mother to me also." Rufus's mother was so dear to the Apostle Paul that he could love her as his own mother. And in my mind's eye, I see Simon of Cyrene becoming an apostle and going home to tell his mother what had happened to him and raising up his two sons in the Christian faith. Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord. Simon carried the cross of a criminal, and 3 days later, he heard about a resurrection. Man, wow. And I'm thinking he must have gone back to Cyrene in Africa, and he must have told his story. Maybe just perhaps he was included with the men that are mentioned in Acts 11:20, who came from Cyrene to Antioch to bring Christ to a Gentile world. He might have been a missionary from Africa to Antioch. This Simon, who just has a spiritual biography of only one verse, has not been forgotten. And neither do we forget the sidewalk Christians who have changed our lives. His name was Sam, a former student said. As I recall, I only talked to him on 2 occasions. He was a janitor at our high school. And looking back on my high school years, I'd have to say that he was maybe the most important person in my life during that period. And that was a rather astounding thing for a student to say and student to make. He didn't talk about a teacher or a principal at the school. It was the janitor. And then the student goes on to say what he wrote, the janitor was the one who said to me, God has given you a lot of gifts, and God expects you to use those gifts well. Sam, an ordinary person, had not been forgotten by the student. And often it's the so-called little people, the sidewalk people, who make a profound difference in our lives. We don't forget them. I'm sure you could look back over your life and you could name 1 or 2. How about that patient Sunday school teacher that put up with you? All your shenanigans and everything you did, but she or he still greeted you every week with a smile, and a Bible story, and maybe a snack. We don't forget the folks who helped mold us into a Christ-like character, even if our appreciation of them doesn't come until a long time afterwards. I've got some in my life. Simon of Cyrene, a sidewalk Christian, has not been forgotten, though he comes and goes so quickly. Third thing to remember, a third characteristic about Simon is that his call to carry Jesus' cross came from a very unexpected source, a Roman soldier. Our call to discipleship may come in many ways. You're at a social gathering, and someone shares gossip or tells a racist or an off-color joke. It could be your call to carry the cross of Christ by calmly saying that the remark offended you, or at least you determined not to repeat it. So often it is in the secular world, symbolized by that Roman soldier that presses the cross upon me. Here I am, I'm minding my own business. I'm working at my job. I'm at the hairdresser. I'm playing golf. I'm shopping. And then comes the challenge in one way or another. Hey, you there, come and help carry the cross of Christ. Milton Cunningham was a missionary. He was on board a plane flying from Atlanta to Dallas. He wrote this about himself. He was assigned to the middle of 3 seats on one side of the plane. Next to him by the window, who was a youngish girl who obviously had Down syndrome. And while they waited for all the passengers to board, she began to ask him some simple and direct questions in her own lovely way. Say, mister, did you brush your teeth this morning? He was a little bit shocked. He said, well, yes, I did. And the girl said, oh, good, that's what you're supposed to do. And then she said, mister, do you smoke? Cunningham told her with a little chuckle, no, I don't smoke. She said, oh, good, because smoking will make you die. And then she said, mister, do you love Jesus? Do you love Jesus? Cunningham smiled at the simplicity of her question. Well, yes, I do love Jesus. And the young girl said, good, we're all supposed to love Jesus. Now, that could be the end of a wonderful little story, a true story. But about that time, a man sat down in the aisle seat next to Cunningham. The little girl nudged him. Cunningham. Yeah, you know. Mister, ask him if he brushed his teeth this morning. Cunningham said, I don't care to do that, thank you. No, go ahead, ask him. And so he did. The man looked a little startled, but he looked over, he saw the girl, and he smiled. He said, well, yes, I brushed my teeth this morning. Plane was taxiing to take off. She nudged him again, asked him if he smokes. The man said, no, I don't smoke. Well, sure enough, here comes the big question. Ask him if he loves Jesus. Cunningham said, I can't do that. That's very personal. And as you can guess, the little girl kept insisting. So Cunningham turned again to the stranger. Now she wants to know if you love Jesus. And the beginning of his smile faded as the stranger replied, you know, I can't say that I do. I just don't know how. I've wanted to be a person of faith all my life. And now I need it very much. And so between Atlanta and Dallas, Milton Cunningham listened to that fellow talk about the brokenness in his life. And Cunningham shared with him about Jesus and what it means to become a person of faith. All because a little girl, a sidewalk Christian, asked that question. Hey there, sidewalk Christian, come up here and help carry the cross of Christ. Perhaps Thomas Shepard had someone like you and me in mind. When he wrote a gospel hymn, some of us used to sing, must Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free? No, there's a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me. Now, those are the words that we sing now, but when Shepard wrote his poem in 1893, these were the opening words. Shall Simon bear the cross alone, and other saints be free? Each saint of thine shall find his own cross, and there's one for me. Sidewalk Christians. There are people who are there when it matters. They're not forgotten. And the call to carry the cross of Christ often comes from a rather unexpected source. When was the last time that you experienced a sidewalk Christian? When was the last time you were one?